Hello everyone and welcome to this self-love exercise. It's an exercise that will help you look around your life with or through the eyes of love, and it will help you enhance self-love in all areas of life. So I will guide you and take you through all areas of your life to see what your life would look like, what your life would feel like if it was an expression of 100% self-love. So please enjoy. So I'm going to share with you a self-love exercise that I have in my book. It's called Mod til at være dig. In English it's Courage to be you. And it breaks down different areas of life so that you may have a look at different areas of your life and see how you might be able to live a life that's a reflection of love for yourself. How is it possible for you to infuse your life in different areas with self-love, really? And so there are 9 different, it looks like this, there are 9 different areas of life. You can put in more if you find more that make meaning for you. And so I'll just go through them and So the first one is your relationship to yourself. And so the exercise is that you may, if you feel like it, rate yourself. So 0 is it's really bad, and 10 it's absolutely perfect. And in the relationship to yourself, the question is, how loving is your relationship to yourself? So how present are you? How connected are you to yourself? What are your thoughts about yourself like? Are you a good friend to yourself? So many different areas. How loving is your relationship to yourself? How compassionate are you with yourself when something's difficult for you, for example? How authentic are you? How much do you trust yourself? Whatever you can think of under relationship to yourself. And so I just want to say before we get into this exercise that it's so important to do this exercise with a lot of compassion and a lot of self-love and compassion towards the difficulty involved in being a human being with an ego that will think that there is something I need to do or be in order to deserve love. And when we sometimes see that the rate is really low, it takes a lot of compassion to not feel guilty or shameful that we haven't succeeded living a more self-loving life. So a lot of compassion is needed. And I also really love this exercise because it helps us to get clear and truthful. What is it really like in different areas of life? And also there may be areas in your life where self-love seems to flow pretty easy, and areas where self-love seems to be pretty blocked. So number one was your relationship to yourself. How loving is it? The next one is your relationships, the relationships that you have in your life. And you may write down all the important relationships and rate them. How self-loving are they? So how am I able to be self-loving in my relationships? Am I myself? Am I authentic? Do I speak my truth? Can I trust myself in my relationships? Do they seem balanced? Do they support me? Are they loving? Do they see the light in me? Do I see the light in others? Is love flowing freely? Whatever you can think of in your relationships. And in my experience, we will have probably relationships that seem very self-loving, and where self-love is easy, and relationships where it seems to be difficult. So in relationships and in the relationship to yourself, there is also the aspect of listening to yourself, of listening to your needs and your emotions, and to what degree are you able to express this in relationships with others. That's also part of being self-loving. And to see relationships in our lives as a reflection of the love that we have for ourselves, or the relationship that we have with ourselves. So when I was younger, I would tend to attract friendships with people who needed someone to lean on. And I would so long for having someone I could lean on. I would attract people who would need me to be the strong one. And I quickly started to realize that it didn't have anything to do with the people, really the relationships, but it had everything to do with how I saw myself and what I expected from my relationships, and the relationship that I had to my own vulnerability and my allowance to be weak and to need other people, to ask for help. And so when I started cultivating my relationship to my own vulnerability and my helplessness and insecurity and things like that, I would start attracting different kinds of friendships with people. Yeah, so that's another one. And you may also ask with each area of your life, what would my life look like if I was in a very loving relationship with myself? What would my day look like? What kind of practices would I have? Yeah. And also in my relationships, if you have relationships where you don't rate yourself high on self-love, what would it take? And why is it difficult with some people? That's also very interesting to look at. Why do some people seem to make it harder for us to be self-loving, and around other people it just seems pretty easy? What would it take for you to feel self-loving in all relationships in your life? And to be concrete around that as well. Maybe with some people you need to speak your voice more, to set boundaries, to allow yourself to be more authentic, things like that. So that's an investigation. So the third area is your work life, your job. So how self-loving are you around your work life? And what would it look like if it was to be an expression of love for yourself? And there are many areas of that. So it's how much do you work? How many hours? Do you have balance between your work life and your private life? Do you use your potential? Are you in your genius zone in your work life? Does it make you happy? Does it give you meaning? Do you feel fulfilled? Are you on purpose? Do you work too much or too little? Are you challenged in the right amount for you? You know, lots of things like that you can reflect on. So what would a really self-loving work life look like for you, and what would it take for you to create that for yourself? And so I also think that when we show ourselves love, like changing things around relationships or our work life or the connection that we have to ourselves, we show ourselves you are worthy of love. You are worthy of a beautiful self-loving life, really. And also I think we can start at any point on this self-love wheel. I call it the self-love wheel, and it will spread out to the other areas. So the next one is family. And you can divide that into your childhood family and the family that you are a part of or have created in your adult life. And again, ask how self-loving is it. I find that many people struggle with self-love in their childhood families, sometimes because we don't see each other clearly. We are stuck in old roles and old visions of each other. Or actually perception of each other, and And it seems to be more difficult for many people to be really authentic in their childhood families. So, and much easier in the families that we have created in our adult life. But it's also how much time do I spend with my family? Sometimes we spend all of our good energy on our work life and come home empty. And come home empty to the people that we love the most. And that's actually not self-loving. It's not really loving towards the people that we have in our lives, but it's not self-loving either. It's what are your values around family life? Do you honor them? What are your holy yeses around your family life? Do you honor your holy yeses? So when my children were small, I would work much less than I do now. I would pick them up early. We would take lots of days off because that felt very self-loving for me, to have lots of time with them and to honor my value around presence in my life. So that's also an aspect, I think, of family life. How present am I? Do I take care of myself so that I can take care of my family? Do I practice presence and self-love so that I may practice presence and loving presence with my family? We can only do that if we start with ourselves. Also, do I set my boundaries? Do I say yes and no? Am I in my empowerment in my family, or do I sometimes fall into victim patterns? So many things that you can look at around your family. So that was the four first. I will go through the last, but I'll just make a short pause. So the relationship to yourself, the relationships that you have in your life, how can these areas be a reflection of love for yourself? Your relationship to your work life and your relationship to your family, both your childhood family and your present family. Yeah, so I'll be back.